Years ago, when I was living in New York, I woke up one morning and I felt like I might have been abducted by aliens. Not in a call the police kind of way. I couldn't help but wonder, because of what I dreamt and because of how I felt, and also my hands were stained, a shade of red that can best be described as spaceship rust. I worried for a minute it was blood and I'd murdered my fiance in my sleep. I checked and she was alive. So I went to the bathroom to inspect my own body for wounds and wash the blood off my hands. But there were no wounds. And the blood wouldn't wash off for 3 days. My fiance was very supportive. She and I were in a rut at the time in all the ways. Nothing was happening. Every day was hard and the same. I'd wake up unemployed and open an app on my phone called Tiny Zoo. It's like Farmville, but a zoo. I'd feed the animals and collect my earnings, mate the pandas, pretend it was email, hatch more birds, hide in the bathroom, rearrange the gazelles to make more room for the bison, and wait for something to change. So a possible alien abduction was very exciting. And then something did change. My dad called to invite me down to Texas to help him write his book, which was a huge deal. He wrote these genius courses that companies all over the world used, and now they were going to be put in books that anyone could access, and he trusted me to help. So I went. We sat in his big presidential office, wallpapered with plaques and awards and newspaper articles all about the genius ideas we were going to put in these books. And with all the earnestness in the world, we started, okay, here we go, write the book, save the world, let's go. And then he got up and disappeared. And I fed my giraffes. And then my zebras, and ultimately went back to New York. And then he called to say it was time to try again, so I went back to Dallas to try again. Okay, now's the time. Let's go. Write the book. Save the world. And then again, he got up and disappeared. I got camels and Flemish giant rabbits. For a year this went on, back and forth, a broken record, side A, New York, side B, Dallas. Time passed, and my zoo grew. And so did a lump in my breast. So back in New York, I went to get a mammogram. Everything was fine, except the doctor pointed out that I had a small piece of metal in my chest. He was worried I'd been shot. I didn't think I had. So this very legitimate doctor suggested, well, let me ask you this. Are you someone who thinks you might have been abducted by aliens? As a matter of fact, I am. And he said, well, if you ever needed evidence, this may be an implant they left behind. I called my parents to tell them the good news. They insisted I come back to Dallas and go to a real doctor. So back I went to side B. No one could explain the metal. It stayed a mystery. I stayed in Dallas to help write the book, and the record stayed broken. And I couldn't understand why this book was so important, but not enough to just sit down and write with me. And why was my dad flying me down to Texas to not write it? But he was too important to question, so I stayed silent and started crossbreeding. Pandas with penguins. Leopards with chimpanzees. My zoo was crazy. one day he suggested we take a break. He took me to a metaphysical conference, just for fun, where the keynote speaker happened to be a man who had the most documented accounts of alien abduction recorded, according to the internet. Trying to fit in, as I do, I let it slip about my red hands that wouldn't wash off and the metal in my chest. There was a radio show host there who was super interested, especially in the metal, because of course she was. What is it? She wanted to connect me with an alien implant expert in California and also have me as a guest on her show. I confided I wasn't ready for that kind of platform. And my dad and I excused ourselves. Back at the car, my dad got very serious and recommended I stop telling that story. And then he saw a penny and smiled because that was his dad waving from heaven. And then he promised that even though he would never die, if he did, he would of course come and visit me too, and I would know. And I realized his cancer was back and bigger. But it was crucial for his business that no one know the founder of the company and the president was sick, so I couldn't tell anyone, not even my fiance, and I had to keep that promise because I'm superstitious, especially when life is at stake. And it killed me that I couldn't tell her why the book was taking so long, or why I couldn't even say when I'd be back, or why I spent hours rearranging elephants just to not notice how scared I was. And eventually she called to tell me she met someone else. I raced back to New York to fix it, but it was too late. She found a way out of our rut. It was over. And I had to go. She was having company. So I flew home to Dallas. On the plane, naturally, I went to my tiny zoo for comfort. And suddenly, looking at the enormity of it, juxtaposed to the tiny backpack that now contained my entire real life, I nearly threw up. In an instant, I deleted it. The pandas, the elephants, years of plotting land, every bird, every breed, gone, as if it had never happened at all. Now I had nowhere to hide. My father's cancer progressed to stage 4. We still tried to write the book full time now, every day. Okay, now's the time. Here we go. Write the book. Save the world. But now, when we procrastinated, instead of hiding, we chatted. For 2 years, deadlines passed as we chatted. Every day was the same, and I hoped it would never end. And then in an instant, he was gone. I missed him so much. I called a medium. Before she even knew my name or who I wanted to connect with, she said, "Your father's here, and he wants you to promise to finish the book. Promise." I was shocked, and she said, "Why are you surprised? He says he told you he'd visit." We talked for an hour, and I laughed, and I cried. And finally she said, "One more thing. He wants you to know," and this must be him because this definitely isn't me. "He wants you to know aliens are real." Does that mean something? And I knew exactly what she meant. It meant that he loved me. Everything about me. That our time together meant something to him, even in death. that our record wasn't broken, it was perfect, and it was still spinning. He was still here. No stories ever finished. And probably I was abducted by aliens.